Sure, for now.
All right, well, hey, welcome to the Metal Jesus and John Riggs panel. Thank you for inviting us to your wonderful state. It's funny, I was telling John, I had no idea what to expect, you know what I mean? And it's beautiful here. It's so beautiful. So it's been really fun kind of driving around and taking in some of the sights. So we're happy to be here. So thanks for having us. So I think today we're just kind of winging it, right? It's kind of what we do.
Winger in it?
Winger in it? Yeah.
Yeah, winger in it.
We had a whole discussion about winger yesterday. That's the thing that happened. Yeah. And I defended winger. Yes. So.
You guys want the theater questions?
What's that?
Theater questions? Startup questions?
Theater?
No, theater.
Theater.
Oh, it's like
Dream theater.
Cabaret?
Dream theater. Yeah.
Chicago? Am I going to perform?
We'll do,
Yeah, that's true.
we'll do dream theater questions.
Yes, I can all day
You can
long,
answer those.
Yeah, I can totally do that. So I think we're just going to do a Q&A, right? Just kind of.
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe a shout out for Upstate Games.
Oh yes, an amazing sponsor that made it possible for Riggs and I to come. Upstate Games, they're a vendor here. It's a local retro gaming store. So shout out to them. Thank you very much for bringing us all the way from the Seattle area. So that's great.
Cool.
Do you want to pass the mic back and forth for everybody asking
I feel like you should run this. Right? I mean that in the nicest possible. By the way, this is Gerry. It's a friend of mine right here. He runs and Puck are admins for the Facebook. If you're part of my Facebook group, Gerry and Puck are.
I got a HUD now.
No. Yeah, because of social media, it's nice to have people that will help you out. So I'm very grateful to you too. So
We have an amazing team.
It's funny because it's been many years and we're finally meeting for the first time. So yeah, it's cool.
2017.
Yeah. So I think we'll probably just take you said a leader question?
Well, yeah,
Peter.
just kind of to start things off.
Is that what you said?
Peter question?
I've never heard
Leader
that.
or
You're making that
Peter.
up.
No,
Yeah.
leader
Okay.
or feeder. either one.
F-E-D-E-R.
Not Peter.
No.
That'd be something different.
Would you like a Peter question?
Sure. Peter Parker.
I have a Peter answer. Yeah.
Peter Quill.
Okay. All right.
So you guys are both incredibly good-sized YouTube personalities.
He's calling us fat.
What do you enjoy most about YouTubing, and what's one thing that you could change if you could about YouTubing?
Go for it.
Sure, I'll make up something. Why not? Sure. What I love most about it is I love to travel. So it allows me to travel to conventions, and it gives me a destination to be. And coming here, we get to run into a lot of the other people on not just YouTube but all social media, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever the case may be, whatnot now. It allows me to, do something for fun. It's show and tell at the end of the day. But it's nice because it allows me to travel to conventions like this and hang out with people like you. That's if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here. I'd probably be at home doing what I do, just not on YouTube. What I can change about YouTube, I'm not sure. I like YouTube in general, or what would I change about my channel?
YouTube in general.
YouTube in general. I would love it if they're really pushing YouTube Shorts, and I would love it if I could do YouTube Shorts on my same channel without throwing off the algorithm of the other videos I'm posting. And if it made it its own thing, that'd be awesome, because they're two totally different beasts, but they're feeding the same beast. So one's throwing the other one off and everything.
For me, the thing I love about YouTube is that, it's just an amazing time to be alive where you can be a content creator of some kind and have access to put your stuff out there in a way that's pretty much free and accessible to the whole world. And so it's really amazing to be able to do videos that I'm passionate about, things I'm passionate about, which is music and video games, and people watch and care. It's amazing to me the fact that this career even exists, and I'm so grateful for it. It's amazing because if you think 20 years ago, this would not be possible. If you were to make videos, you'd have to get into the sort of the Hollywood system. You'd have to, you'd have to be on television or film or something like that. And so YouTube is this great place where everybody can do it.
Yeah.
And cameras are cheap and better than ever before. I'll do a video on my trip here, and it's 99% of it will be shot with an iPhone, which is amazing, right? So that's really cool. I definitely love that. Some of the things that I don't really like about YouTube, but I think the thing that comes to mind right off the bat is that I have no control over it. So while it's really cool that it can be a career, and I'm very lucky to be able to do it, but I have no control over who sees my videos, when they show up on your front page or your suggested. It's one of the reasons why I also focus on social media like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, because at least I have some control over that. Where if you are a subscriber to my channel, you may see my new video, you may not. It really depends on the YouTube algorithm, of which I have zero control over. So it's kind of a weird, it's a job that it's not for everybody, for sure. You have to really be in it for the long haul. So.
Right.
Good question, though. Any other questions about it? Really anything, so.
Kind of to follow, what was going through your mind day one? Like, why did you go, I want to put myself up on this platform?
Yeah. So, for me, I've been making home videos for decades. So basically, because I remember renting a VCR recorder when I was in high school. We'd save up $200, mowing lawns, so that me and my buddy could go make stupid little movies in our backyard. And this was in like 1988. And then I would edit with 2 VCRs to kind of do the cuts. So I've been really interested in that for a long time. Even when family would fly up to Seattle, we would shoot video, and I would let them leave with the DVD of their trip. So I've always had a passion for it. And then I got a job in audio production. I worked in a recording studio for a while, and then just kind of came around, and YouTube was possible. So I'm the kind of guy who when DVDs were new, I would watch the movie with the audio commentary with the director. Like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I was just like blown away listening to them, how they made those movies. And so I've always been the kind of the analytical guy who looks and so how are they color grading that? Why is James Cameron cutting T2 that way? And so I just kind of applied all that to my own videos and then just rolled it into YouTube. And the other thing too, and I've told people this, that I treated it as a second job. I was working full-time in IT from 8:30 to 5, go home, have dinner, and then I did YouTube until I went to bed every day for years, just to try to kind of see if that was going to be my path or not. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does.
Yeah.
As a fellow fan of DVD commentaries.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's great.
Mine's not as in depth. Mine was, I didn't have a channel until we went to the same conventions in the Northwest.
Yeah.
And it was after a while, that's when Jason said, a lot about, Japanese, Famicom games. You want to be on my channel?
And
talk about
wrestling.
them?" And wrestling is like, sure, I can talk about that all day. So I did that for a while, and then I didn't really watch YouTube for shows at the time. But then when I saw what he did, I was like, well, I can probably do something like that. I come from a radio background. I know I have a stuttering problem, and I'm in radio. How'd that work out? It's applying the same radio philosophy as it is with YouTube and editing. And I'm our audio producer for our radio stations. And editing audio is the same as editing video. It's just there's another track, which is the video portion of it. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I can do something with this. And same as I just use my phone forever. And so at the time I was just like, I can do this.
Right.
So I did just for fun, and I use it more as a way for back in those days, and still today. But I was making my own hacked NES games and putting them on physical cartridges and how to do repros and stuff like that. And noticing that there was no tutorial on the internet in layman's terms. It was all very technical and I'm like, that's not me. I know how to do puzzles, but I couldn't tell you what each little thing does or the voltage or anything like that. I didn't know any of that. So I was like, I can use my YouTube video. I can make the videos of, look, here's how I do it, and I'm a very visual learner, so like never mind reading something on a blog. I'll make a visual step-by-step, here's how I do this thing. And then from there, that's when my channel started going and started reading the comments and just started having fun with it and just experimenting along the way and see what happens. That's about it. Next. Right over here.
So there's a TV show you might have heard of, Stranger Things. They put a spotlight on Master of Puppets in Metallica recently. So a lot of people are starting to kind of dip their toe into metal. What are some other albums, some that are well known and some that maybe that aren't well known, that you would suggest to people that are just getting into metal?
That's all you.
Yeah, that's quite the question. And I think it's really cool.
Introduction to metal, huh?
Yeah, actually, speaking of the Stranger Things, I haven't seen season 4 yet, but the two things that are really cool I've heard about that is that you're right, that Master of Puppets by Metallica is like #1, or it's in the top 10 again, which is great. That album came out in the 80s. But even more impressive is the Kate Bush Running Up That Hill, which is a great song. And it took 37 years from release for it to hit #1. It broke a world record, and I love that song too. So it shows the power of putting a great song into something like that. Which it's funny you mentioned that, because yeah, I was watching Stranger Things. I was like, gosh, their budget for licensed music, it must be outrageous, because you hear songs in there that no other show does, and they just do it one right after the other. I mean, it's super expensive. So when it comes to metal music, as you know, or maybe, I don't know if you know this, but you know, it starts back in the 70s or maybe even late 60s with bands like, you know, Black Sabbath and things like that. So all the way up through the 80s and 90s and such. So off the top of my head, obviously Master of Puppets is my favorite. That album is my favorite Metallica album. Ride the Lightning is also very good. Some newer stuff, I'm a huge fan of Ghost. I don't know if I'd call them metal, but they are definitely rock. Fantastic band, brand new, newer band. I'm a big fan of Dream Theater. Dream Theater is kind of Metallica. It's progressive metal. It's Metallica meets Pink Floyd, probably. And so, you know, Images and Words is a great place to start there. Gosh, metal, you know, Judas Priest, you can't go wrong with that sort of stuff. You know, like Screaming for Vengeance, that you know, it's speaking of like Scorpions, some of that old sort of hard rock. Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power is one of my favorite metal albums. It's funny, my wife is a real estate agent, but she's a metal drummer. So she dresses up, she drives a Lexus, right? But she'll pull up to a listing, and during the summer, she's cranking Walk by Pantera, and her clients are like, and she gets out, she's 5'1", she's in a business suit, you know, she's gonna show the house, and, you know, it's just hilarious, right? She also loves Bullet for My Valentine, you know, it's the classic sort of stuff like that. So, but metal is a huge genre that covers many subgenres, whether it's grindcore, industrial, thrash. You know, I could mention Slayer, Testament, stuff like that. I could talk a lot about it for a while. So I listen to, as much as I talk about video games on my channel, I actually listen to music all the time. If anybody's ever been to my house,
It's always playing.
it's always playing. I have little Apple mini pod speakers all throughout my house, and I just basically say, hey, you know, Siri, whatever, to just play. You can tell her what room, she can follow you around. It's what I do. So yeah, and I listen to not only metal, but I also listen to jazz. I'm really big into Bill Evans, Dave Brubeck. I listen to pop. I'm a child of the 80s, so you mentioned an 80s pop band, Journey, all that sort of stuff. I know every word that there is, and I'm a huge music fan. So you know, even classical and stuff. So I can talk your ear off.
Yeah. Music and cars, yeah.
Yeah, and cars, don't get me
Oh my
started
God.
in cars. So I love cars.
I got nothing. Next question is mine.
Well, but you work at a radio station.
I do work at a radio station, which means my entire musical experience and knowledge comes from songs that play on the radio. You know, outside of maybe a few, like you know, In Excess was my favorite band, in, you know, when I was growing up. So outside of that, you know, all my experience comes from, you know, comes from radio.
Yeah.
So it's whatever we're playing, I can tell you about that. And there's a new band that we're just now playing called Giovanni and the Hired Guns, that kind of has that throwback, you know, like early 2000s vibe. So I'm digging them right now, but yeah, I don't think I would consider it metal. It's almost like country rock or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Has a little vibe to it, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you mentioned children of the 80s. I was talking to my wife the other day. I think there's a phenomenon here with music and games,
Yeah.
where my parents came from Sinatra and that kind of stuff, and their grandparents came from being and that kind of stuff. But once you're children of the 80s, we relate to the younger kids because they resample our stuff all the time.
Oh, sure.
They're like
Yeah.
going off on it and like, what are you doing? How do you know that? You're stealing from us.
Well, you know, and I could go old man on you here and sort of, you know, new music versus old. I mean, I will say though that I think, you know, from a musician standpoint, one of the amazing things when you look back at the 80s and also the 90s is that those bands for the most part, knew how to play their instruments, wrote their own music, and performed them live. And that is something that is incredibly rare even today, right? And, you know, like for instance, you know, the band Toto, you know, with Roseanne and Africa and all these sort of songs. When you listen to those songs even today, they were recorded extremely well. They sound great in your car when you're cruising down the road, even today. And they're amazing musicians. They're, you know, the guitarist for Toto is the guitarist who played on Michael Jackson's Thriller. Most people don't know that. They were session musicians at the time, played on tons of great albums in the 80s. And so we're very lucky to like that music. And it's wild that younger kids are being gravitating to it as well. Back, you know, maybe 10 years ago, I was like, oh, this is because of Rock Band. Remember Rock Band was getting all sorts of people into, younger people playing, you know, getting into instruments and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have younger children. I have they're 17, 15, and 14 now. My youngest two are 11 months apart, so there's Irish twins. And it's all thanks to, nowadays, I usually listen to like whatever 80s channel, you know, when I'm driving. Also ironic, I'm a radio DJ, but I have a subscription to Sirius XM, so there's that. Because they have I do a lot of traveling, so driving, so 90s, 80s, 90s, and everything. But like some random song will come on, my kids will start singing to it. And I was like, how do you know this song? You don't know nothing about this song. They saw it on TikTok. So all of these TikTok music videos and all these, everything's all chiming together. And so since they're like always running through TikTok and they keep on recycling all these old songs. Well, the same thing that happened with Running Up the Hill.
Yeah.
Same thing with Journey's, Don't Stop Believing, the last episode of The Sopranos.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you know, it's like everything retro becomes new again, you know, to these kids. And it's like, it's been around a minute, you know. So, I mean, with my kids especially, they're hearing about all these old songs, and not just popular songs too, but I mean, like, my oldest right now is really into Earth, Wind, and Fire, of all bands, which is cool, because I mean, I dig that kind of groove sound, so it's hard to say, you know, and I'm cool with it, you know.
Casey and Sunshine, yes or no?
Oh.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
I love disco.
Because I was born in 71, so I was at that age where disco, I didn't know it wasn't cool at the time, you know. So, you know, kids had their I Was Made for Loving You. I was like, I love that song. But then Casey and the Sun, do you remember K-Tel Records, right?
Yeah.
At the time would have, you know, it was kind of like What's Music Now or whatever.
Oh, sure. That's what I call music.
Yeah. So K-Tel was the thing back in the day. So I remember, I think my uncle bought me a K-Tel. It had Diana Ross on it. It had Kiss. It had Casey and the Sunshine Band. All that sort of stuff. Me and my cousin loved it. So yeah.
Got two over here.
Okay.
Who wants to go first?
Lady Ray.
Oh, thank you. Hey, good fan of the show. You work with Sierra Games.
I did.
And with Ken and Roberta. Do you consult with them regularly? Do y'all, like, see it? Are you working on anything new?
Yeah, you know, so recently, so the answer is to not really, because what happened was that Ken and Roberta sold Sierra back in like 96 or something like that, and I stayed until I think 98 or something. So it was basically after they had sold Sierra to the other company, and you know, they sold it and they basically walked away from the video game industry. They bought a boat and they traveled the world for years, and so nobody heard from them. They were just around the world on this big yacht, you know, because they worked so hard building their company in the 70s and 80s, and I think they were burned out. You know, it was ready for them to enjoy the fruits of what they built. And then what happened was that my buddy Paul and I, Drunken Master Paul, who is one of the people who I met when I was working at Sierra, one of many people, but we decided to do a video. This is probably like 4 years ago, kind of like the rise and fall of Sierra, to try to basically tell the story of what happened with Ed. And I did it completely just me and Paul, and we just wanted to talk about it. And the video did extremely well, but Ken emailed me, and he was like, you got it right. And I was like, oh, I did, cool, you know? Because he was nowhere to be found, and you know, and I just took my own experience, and we showed party footage and all that sort of stuff. But I was like, hey Ken, if you ever get back into Seattle, you know, come on and hang out sometime, you know. So anyways, long story short, his marketing people contacted me last year. They're like, hey, Ken is now getting serious during the pandemic to start coding again and get into that ball game. Are you interested in hanging out with them and kind of getting the exclusive. So I was like, hell yeah, that'd be great to do. So flew down to Palm Springs, hung out with them for about 4 or 5 days, and just had an amazing time kind of reconnecting with them, because when I worked at Sierra, it was like 1,100 employees. And so Ken and Roberta were just way up here. We were in the same building and you'd bump into them, but I was a low guy on the totem pole, right? And so it was just kind of this great thing. And it was funny because we hung out at their house and the number one thing they wanted to talk about was YouTube. How does the YouTube work? How do you get paid? How does this work? That sort of stuff. But it was amazing. It was great to be. And they were also too, because they were so out of the loop when it comes to the gaming, they didn't think anybody cared. Because what had happened was at the end of the 90s and the 2000s, most people kind of just forgot about PC gaming and Sierra and stuff like that. It moved on to other companies, and so they didn't think anybody cared, And then they come back last year and the last couple of years, and they see all these people who are like, oh my God, old Sierra games. We love that stuff. And they were so excited about that, to sort of see the love for that stuff. So.
What are you both currently playing right now? Because you're traveling, so I know you must have brought your Switches or something.
Oh yeah. No.
What are you both in depth into currently?
What am I playing?
I gotta think about it. What am I playing?
So I'm always playing something. I always got a million things going on. And I do love, one of the things I do love about travel is that it gets me out of my house. I put pants on, and I always like really think about what I'm going to take with me on this plane, especially with long flights like getting to here. It's great, right? So I just recently got a Steam Deck, and that's kind of me getting back into more modern PC gaming. I have a lot of older PC games, and machines, but so it's it's like the latest and greatest. So I brought that along, and it's been really interesting sort of playing that. I tell you, I absolutely love it. So I've been playing Need for Speed Heat, which is but it's on a portable. You can't do that on the Switch. Right. There is no version of it on the Switch, which is great. There's also the Assassin's Creed. There's a lot of stuff I talked about in my videos recently. Assassin's Creed Origin runs on it. The interesting thing that it's about the Steam Deck, though, is that it's such powerful hardware that if you play a really new game, it eats up the battery. And there's a little button you can push that'll show how much wattage each processor is using in real time. And so you can hit that button and it shows all these processors, these cores that are running. And a game like Need for Speed Heat is using the max. It's just pushing. You can hear the fan. I'm on the plane, the guy's probably like, it's louder than the plane. You know what I mean? He's like, what the hell are you doing? But the other thing that's really interesting about it too is that not every game knows it's running on the Steam Deck. And so some of them need you to log into their service. I'm in airplane mode. It can't do that, so it sits there, fails, crashes. You're like, great. So it's definitely kind of early times for the Steam Deck. But as far as the hardware goes and the experience, the games that run on it are amazing. And it does emulation extremely well. Like it'll do GameCube emulation, running the Dolphin emulator. It's amazing looking on that little screen. So I was playing some games like that, doing some 007 Nightfire. I love that first-person shooter. Some F-Zero, stuff like that.
I play mostly, especially on my Switch. I do a lot of. I know we're at a convention all about collecting games, but I download so many of those like $5 indie titles from the eShop on the Switch, and I love doing that because. Especially with my kids, growing up with my kids, I had all the stuff hooked up, so it wasn't uncommon to see my kids play Legend of Zelda for the NES, to Breath of the Wild for the Switch, because to them there was no retro, it was all video games, didn't matter. There wasn't any generational thing. And now, all the games I'm playing on my Switch look like old Nintendo games. So that's all full circle anyway. So I do play a lot of, what was I playing on the way in? I mean, like games, there's a game called 10 I was playing where you had to like go through 10 stages in 10 seconds, kind of thing. There's a Wonder Boy collection that just came out for the Switch, which has like a rewind feature, and I'm here to say, and this is if you remember, like TMNT for the NES, fine. Ghosts and Goblins, fine. I'm here to say the original Hudson's Adventure Island is the most difficult game on the NES. If you ever played through it, more power to you. I've never been able to do it. But with Wonder Boy, it's not exactly the same. At least this one has a rewind feature. So I've been kind of playing those games just to go through the motions, of actually playing through these games. But then when it comes to retro stuff, I stream a lot on Twitch as well. So that's when I'm able to play that. But when I'm at home, like Fall Guys I've been playing Fall Guys since it first came out, and now it's free and cross-platform, so I'm kind of playing that again.
What's that cloud game you're playing?
Oh, Rain on Your Parade?
Yeah.
Oh my
That
god.
game is great.
Yeah, I think that came out about a year ago. It's coming physical soon.
So it's called what?
Rain on Your Parade.
Okay, I need to check this out.
And it's
ridiculous.
the closest thing I can think of. It's kind of like Untitled Goose Game in that kind of mischief area. I love Untitled Goose Game as well. But yeah, on that one, you play this kind of cardboard cutout cloud, and every level is just you being just like an asshole cloud, just trying to getting in people's way and raining on stuff and trying to make wires short out with using rain on them and stuff like that too. And there's other references. There's a level that's basically Metal Gear Solid, has the same music and everything. There's a level that's The Office. I mean, they don't say it's The Office, but it's the stage of The Office, and you have to do certain things to destroy the printers and stuff like that too. Oh my god, it's a game like I said, it came out about a year ago, it seems like. And it's a game I was thinking, once they announced it physically, I was like, I gotta pick that up because I just want to play through it again, and I wouldn't mind having a physical copy of that. But yeah, that's an awesome one, for sure.
Okay, so you mentioned about playing GameCube on the Steam Deck. If you mind me asking, what are your 3 favorite GameCube games?
Says the guy who's going for complete GameCube collection.
Say it out loud, all the prices are going to go up. So you know how that works. You know how that works. So yeah. Say all the cheap ones.
I got to ban you from the Facebook group.
Oh, that's okay.
Wow, this got ugly quick.
If YouTubers talking about games worked, I would be like, TNC Surf Design is the best game ever. It's the rarest game. I got 9 of those.
Man, GameCube. I love the GameCube. I mean, the first one that comes to mind always is Eternal Darkness. I just think that's a fantastic survival horror game. I love how it jumps through time. I love the fact that you can target different parts of the body whenever you're fighting stuff. Story, everything. I love the Lovecraftian part of that game is amazing. The F-Zero is just, I mean, I'm just amazed that they haven't made another one. Or, I don't know, just remastered that one, Gotcha Force is a game. I know it's super expensive, and I'm sorry. I don't want to mention it, but I do think it's so much fun. I think it's exclusive to the GameCube, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, and it's just a really fun kind of drop in. It's a mech kind of game, but it has a collecting Pokemon aspect to it, and so it's very addictive, very fun. You can play for 5 minutes, or you can play for a couple hours. It's great. Gosh, what other ones? Also too, I mean, I just like even some of the third-party ones. So on the Steam Deck, I was playing, the SSX games. Tricky and SSX3 are really good on the GameCube. And that, the funny thing is, I originally played those on the PS2 because that's what I had, and I always thought, well, that was probably the best version of it. But honestly, the GameCube is just that much more powerful that those third-party games actually look and run a little bit better, in my opinion. So I love those 2 games, and playing those on the Steam Deck in the Dolphin emulator is really fun. On the go. Again, there's no other way to do that, really, unless you were to use a laptop or something. Yeah.
I've been singing the praises of Ribbit King since it first came out on the GameCube. And if through every generation, if you haven't checked out Ribbit King, I mean, this is, never mind what else comes out. It's like they're still playing GameCube. Ribbit King just recently went up in price by the higher end, but for the longest time it wasn't. But man, I love Ribbit King. If you're not familiar, it's like golf, but you have to hit a catapult, the frog jumps, and you have to. It's awesome. You gotta check it out sometime. I'm a huge fan of the Mario Party games, and Mario Party 5 is my favorite Mario Party of all the Mario Parties, so I've got to have a GameCube for that for sure. And man, I have no idea why Sega hasn't made an update to Billy Hatcher. Oh my god, yeah. I love Billy Hatcher. It's from Sega, it's a GameCube exclusive from Sega. And it has that old school Sega charm. It could have been a Dreamcast game, and maybe it was supposed to be a Dreamcast game, I don't know, but it feels like a Dreamcast game. But it's cool, and it's that era of Sega that I really enjoyed. So, yeah, those will be my 3 anyway.
Are you planning on going back to Japan, or and do you have any tips for big people like me to go there for the first time?
Okay.
Go to Japan.
Yeah, so his question was, am I going to go back to Japan? And any tips for larger dudes in Japan. Boy, can I tell you. So it's funny, actually, to answer the last part of that, you know, I felt like Godzilla there, like Godzilla, take out Tokyo, you know. I'm huge, right? And if you look at my one of the Japan videos, you'll see a red thing right here. That's because I would hit myself getting out of the subway because the bars are lower, so people could hold on to them every time. Because you got to hurry to get out the door, and I just whack myself, and you know, and Rebecca hold on to my arm, get out, you know, okay, you know, it was, and that happened. Also too, like going to like a ramen restaurant. God, the table felt like it was just like 6 inches wide, you know, and it's me and Tony, which is Kinsey's husband. We're just all cuddled, and we have 4 bowls of ramen. I don't even know how it fits on there. It was like using the public restroom at some of those, like you know how like you mentioned the airport, you know, or the airplane, you know, when you get into the airplane, you're kind of trying to squeeze into it. It's worse. It's just not made for big people. That said, I had an amazing time. It's funny because when you go to Japan, at least for us, we're just lost, and that's kind of fun. It's just fun diving headfirst into a culture and a country that's completely different, and it's safe, so you can't really screw anything up, right? You just wander around and take it all in, and I absolutely loved it. And so when we got home, Rebecca was like, we're going back. Which means a lot, because Rebecca loves going to places like Europe and stuff. She's like, Japan is going to be our #1. So we wanted to go to Japan. We planned on going back to Japan, but they were just so locked down. They were one of the most locked down countries. Even if you could get in for a while, you had to quarantine for like a month or something like that. And it's been tough. It took my friend Kinsey, who had a job there, to move from the US like almost 2 full years, and she was an employee. So to answer your question, it sounds like they're starting to potentially open up again. We'd like to go back next year. It's the #1 place we'd like to go, and just do it all again, you know. We went to 3 different cities. We went to Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto in like 11 days, and we just love to just make it even longer, you know. It'd be fun. So, and as retro gamers, you go there and you see a culture that is all about retro games. I mean, it's just incredible to be in a young, old, whatever. The light switches in your Airbnb will have a cute little character on the light switches. I mean, it's everywhere. I remember the utility company in our Airbnb was this cute. They had like a cute little logo for it. It was just like, what is this? It's like gachapon machines are everywhere, and it's pretty neat. So you'll have a great time if you go.
Yeah. I got that.
Okay.
There's a question down here, though.
Yes.
Is the Gamer Eats thing still going to be another video on that?
Yeah, you know, people still ask about Gamer Eats episodes, which is so much fun. You know, so that was a series of videos I did with my buddy Drunken Master Paul, who has been on the Food Network, and so he's great on camera and making food and all that. So we love making those videos. To be quite honest, we've talked about it. During the pandemic, it was wild because up in Washington State, we were one of the first to kind of get the virus. And so our governor took it serious. Everyone was locked down. And what was crazy, though, is that Paul, 2 weeks before, bought a cookie company. And he's like, you know, because he didn't know, right? And so, anyways, to make a long story short, what happened was, during the pandemic, people bought cookies through Uber Eats. So suddenly he had like a little kiosk machine or kiosk place that people would drive to, and Ubers were just going through all the time. So he expanded. He basically, during the pandemic, opened 3 other locations in the Seattle area, hired a bunch of people, had to buy a whole new kitchen to make more cookies. So he's just been extremely busy. So that's the reason why we really haven't done it. So we still hang out. I love that dude to death. I'd love to do some more. They're a lot of fun to make, because we just are very silly, you know? Like the waffle one in my basement where we're smoking out the entire place, and my wife was freaking out because the fire alarm was going off, you know? It was good times.
All right, we've all been there, we've all played games that is just so terrible. This would make a better coaster than a program. Which ones, have you guys experienced that? Like, what games have you guys played that it's like, you pop it in, play for 5 minutes, go, hey, nobody, pop back up.
Terrible games.
I know. I always have a hard time with these.
I try to find the good in everything, you know?
Yeah.
maybe a better way is, what game would you absolutely never pick up again?
You know, it's a hard question for someone like me to answer too, because you know, if I don't like a game, I just move on, because I don't have any shortage of games to play, right? So, and they're making more every day. So, stuff that I wouldn't necessarily have. I guess there's some things that I don't like about games that will make me quit. I hate that feeling where I'm not. I feel like I'm not playing the game, but I'm trying to figure out what the developer wants me to do. You know what I mean? Where it's a puzzle, and I feel like that I would know the logical solution to it, and it doesn't work. I'm like, okay, is this just a broken game, or is it just something I'm not understanding? You know, also save points in games. Like I remember playing, I think it was the first Destroy All Humans game. Towards the end, like the last thing I want to do is replay a section of a level because I get to the end and I die. And so that's one of those games where, yeah, you will, towards the end of it, you have to just have to do it, you know? The other thing too is that I don't really like grinding in RPGs anymore.
Yes.
Like I really like, you know, back in the day you played Dragon Warrior or whatever on the NES, and that was just kind of the thing. It's like, you'd walk 3 feet and there'd be a random battle and you just kind of did. I can't do it anymore, you know what I mean? I want to get to the story now, you know? So that's kind of a non-answer, but
I'll give you my non-answer. Because sometimes I'll play a game, I'll dislike it, I won't play it again, and then I'll come back to it like a year later saying like, it's kind of like Hostess Snowballs for me, the snack cake, because I love chocolate, I love cream, I love coconut, I love marshmallow. You can't go wrong, but you can because they're disgusting. But a year later, I'm like, they can't be that bad, right? And I'll buy it again, and I'll be like, this is why I hate it. This is why I never buy these. I hate these things. So when it comes to games like Deadly Towers for the NES, where it's like, why would it be a bad game? You're an overworld, big map, you get money, you buy upgrades and everything perfect, and you play it for about 2 seconds, and you're like, oh, that's right, I hated this game. So I keep coming back to all these, you know, these games that I don't care for. But I mean, that's my non-answer anyway. It's like, yeah, they may be terrible up front, and then I'll kind of forget that I won't forget that they're terrible, but I'll like, well, maybe I just need to play in a different light, and there is no different light. They're still terrible.
What's a game that has come out this year that has like really surprised you? You didn't expect it to be as good as it was.
Ooh. A newer game, boy. Yeah, a game that came out this year, huh?
yeah, well, I don't know if it came out this year or not. Maybe it didn't, but you know, a game that really impressed me is the new Ratchet and Clank on the PS5. You know, we're at that period where people are like, okay, you know, do you need a PS5 really, or is PS4 good enough? You know, we're not seeing anything that's actually pushing the hardware. The new Ratchet and Clank pushes the hardware. The way it streams in multiple dimensions without any load screen is kind of amazing. That's one of the first times I was like, oh, this is why this is using next gen. Not only that, but just like the graphics and everything. I love that game quite a bit. I love that series a lot, so it was cool to play that. Also, again, I'm a car guy, you know, Forza Horizon 5, I know it's not this year, but they keep releasing new stuff for it. Just open world Mexico, all licensed cars, you know, I can play it all day. So it runs on Steam Deck, I'm just saying.
There you go.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
I'm also a huge VR gamer, and there's a game that came out this year for the Quest called Zenith VR, which is just, it's an open world MMO. I've never been one to really care for MMOs. I never wanted to be. I've lost friends to him because they just end up playing video games all day. And I never see them ever again. I was like, I never wanted to do that. But this game, I was like, well, I gotta check it out because it's in VR. You know, it's an open world. You can go wherever you want, and you'll see the other players rocking around or trying to have a conversation with you or whatever. And it was a game I literally thought I was just gonna play it for a moment, just to kind of experience it, just go around and say, okay, this is cool. You know, just look around. You can like, oh, and it's kind of like Breath of the Wild, where you can climb everything. So it's like, oh, I want to go up there. So you climb up the thing, look around, and maybe jump off and glide somewhere else and do something else. And then before I know it, my battery would die because I just exhausted the entire battery for the thing. It's like, oh shoot, I hope it's saved. You know, and so I have to charge it, and then like, you know, a little while later, I put it back on when my kids are in bed or something like that. So it's a game that I keep coming back. I haven't beaten it yet. I finally got to a certain point, and there's the story mode progression. There's like a boss you have to fight. And doing it by myself, couldn't do it, but then fortunately one time I showed up to like, well, I'll try it again. And there were already other people there also fighting them at the same time, so we could all join in. 5 minutes? All right, so Zenith VR would be mine for the Quest 2. Huge VR gamer. I love it.
Yeah. Yes.
So my son just picked up a Game Boy Advance for the first time.
Ooh.
What some games should we check out?
Boy, we need Reggie here for this,
I
because
know.
he loves that system. I do too.
There's something like 2,000 games, you know.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the one I always think about, the one I loved when I first got that for sure was Metroid Zero Mission. I mean, and also Fusion. Both of those games are just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I like...
Golden Sun is a really cool JRPG that's exclusive. Well, it was exclusive to, I guess it did a sequel on the DS, but that's a really cool JRPG style RPG for it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I'm a huge fan of the WarioWare series, and WarioWare Twisted is my favorite WarioWare of every WarioWare game. So because it has the little tilt thingy too. Every WarioWare has a new gimmick based on that console kind of thing. So the fact that it had a little tilt thing to it, it's one of those. I played so much of my Game Boy Advance. When it first came out, I got the SP and all that, and I'm drawing a blank. I just played everything I could.
Yeah, I did too.
Some of those Nickelodeon games, I just think like, oh, Nickelodeon for kids, I guess. But some of those games like Avatar and stuff like that, like I never even watched the cartoon, but the game was really cool because so many of the games at the time were just like, hey, we're just going to model all of our games based after that kind of like Legend of Zelda style, which is my favorite genre anyway. So it was a good time for video games.
Oh, Minish Cap.
Minish Cap is one of my favorite Legend of Zelda games of all time.
Yeah.
So I'm old enough to remember when Legend of Zelda was the only Legend of Zelda.
This is for both of you, but what's a game franchise that's been absent for a while that you'd like to see return?
Oh, several.
Thinking.
Well, I mean, there's a ton. Although the one that popped in my head is the one I show in every one of my intros. It's Hero. It's basically, I love that it's one of the best Atari 2600 games ever made. It's a full, I just love that game. It was one of the first games I was passionate about as a kid, and that's why it stuck with me. The same way Mario and some other Zelda games have stuck with people. I love that series, and so I'd love to see it rebooted or just remastered or something. I think it'd be very cool. That would be, pretty neat for me, sure. And I'm sure there's tons more.
I do like the Ghosts and Goblins series, but also a huge fan of the Maximo games, which was like the 3D action platforming Ghosts and Goblins without calling it Ghosts and Goblins. And I would love to see a new Maximo. It's super cool.
Yeah.
And we have time for one more question. Aha. Should we do rapid fire 3?
What are we doing? Sure.
All right. This one. You first.
Yeah. Have you ever had a crush on a video game character?
I will, without saying too much, and every guy, if you haven't done this, you're a liar. Everybody in this room has paused the game when Chun-Li does the high kick. I promise you it's happening.
Yeah, you're bringing up a memory here. Oh my God, my mom caught me. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, what?
So, it's not as bad as you think. However, on the Commodore 64, there was Samantha Fox strip poker, and you got to see most of her.
Like that.
I was very young at the time. She was in black and white. It's not as creepy. It's weird. But anyways, the funny thing is that I learned how to play poker because I played that game so much because I wanted to play so bad. And I'm still a pretty good poker player. Thank you, Samantha Fox. Don't Google that name if you don't know who it is.
What are some other places on the East Coast that you guys would like to visit in the future?
Oh, more East Coast places?
Anywhere and everywhere. I love traveling.
New York would be cool. Just anywhere really. Just wherever there's a convention, we'll be there. And and this is a great one here. So
yeah,
I'd be happy coming back here.
Yeah, 100% for sure.
So and then in the back.
Where do you guys see the industry going? Do you just see it being powerful, more consoles, faster load times, VR? Do you think we're gonna Ready Player One it?
I don't think VR will take over 100% for sure. But I mean, there's like PC games, there's video games and then there's mobile games. I think there's video games and there's VR gaming. It's its own kind of subcategory. It's like, here are all the best sodas in the world, Pepsi, Coke, Mountain Dew, but then nobody's mentioning Red Bull, Monster. And so they're like sodas, but it's its own category.
The other thing I would add to that is that a couple years ago, Microsoft employees reached out to me and I got to demo the Microsoft HoloLens. which is basically augmented reality, right? So you can see through it, but it's basically using technology to map the room and bumps and all that sort of stuff and put the VR in your real world. It blew my mind. Now the device at the time was $3,000 to $5,000 or something like that. It was way too expensive, but it felt like the future. It felt like, because if they could do augmented reality, but then also shutter it and then put you into like the Oasis or VR, that is what will happen. I think that, like for instance on my car, it's broadcasting on my windshield. It's reading street signs, it's putting the speed limit, it's putting the directions on my windshield. That to me feels like what is coming for gaming. It'll just be, you'll put on a pair of glasses or whatever, and you'll just be able to do it any and all the time. So, yeah, good question though. All right, well, thank you so much for coming to our panel. We really
Just like a group photo if we can.
A group photo. So,
for the video.